A hiring manager runs a Zoom interview. The candidate is sharp, great communication, confident, and codes cleanly in real time. They answer follow-up questions well, they explain their thinking, they seem exactly like the kind of person you'd want on the team. They get the offer, and they start 3 weeks later. And within a month, something feels extremely off. They freeze up on problems they supposedly solve with ease. They ask questions that suggest they've never actually used the tools they listed on their CV. Their code on the job looks nothing like what they wrote in the interview. What happened? Simply put, they cheated. In that interview pool, they almost certainly weren't the only one. Let's talk about how this is actually being done, because this is far more organised than most people realise. And the most common method right now is simply running AI in the second window. The candidate pastes the problem in, gets a working solution back, then walks the interviewer through like they wrote it themselves. Some people do this clumsily and get caught. Their explanations don't match the code, or the solution is overcomplicated in ways that don't make sense. But to others have gotten generally good at it. They narrate slowly, they fake hesitation at the right moments, they ask a clarifying question or two to buy time. From the other side of the screen, the recruiter or hiring manager buys this. And because there are actual services for this now, not underground, not hard to find, people advertise openly in certain communities, will pass your technical interview. There are Discord servers and private Telegram groups specifically set up for this. One person does all the talking and screen sharing. Someone else, however, off camera, on a separate device, is solving the problem in real time and feeding the answers through a chat window or a second phone just outside the frame. Sometimes it's a friend returning a favour, sometimes it's paid arrangement, or something even more sinister. Agents from other countries like North Korea, for example, are probably the most notorious example of this. But it gets reported by recruiters and interviewers often enough that it's clearly not rare. My point being is none of this requires being some kind of criminal mastermind, it just requires motivation. And when a job pays between 6 or even 7-figure salaries, one of the few professions to attain this without needing a degree, and as a result, you can probably see why this is an extremely motivating pathway to take for some people. And you're wondering, why is this so hard to stop? Well, from what I have seen, the interview format and the system has basically invited this. If your entire technical screen was to solve an algorithm in 45 minutes, you've created the test with an answer key. And once that answer key exists, people will find it, memorize it, or outsource it. The interview is always gameable. AI just made it dramatically easier and dramatically cheaper. Cheating interviews is nothing new. It's been around for centuries. However, remote hiring has made things a lot worse, exponentially worse rather. Before 2020, most serious interviews happened in person, which closed off most of the methods by default. Post-pandemic, remote became the norm, and the attack surface exploded. A second laptop sitting just off frame is invisible. You can't force candidates to install monitoring software without running into serious legal and ethical issues. And even if a company suspects something, proving it in real time is nearly impossible. And the consequences are minuscule to non-existent. Even if someone does get caught, at most the offer gets pulled, no record, no flag that follows them. At the very worst, maybe a blacklist from the company. And that's it. They apply somewhere else next week. The cost of getting caught is essentially zero. That in and of itself is a pandemic of its own. So what's the actual response from the industry as a whole? Some companies, particularly larger ones like Google, have started moving final round interviews back on site. It's expensive, it's hard to schedule, and it's disadvantageous to candidates who can't easily travel, but it closes off most remote cheating methods in one fell swoop. Others are leaning much harder on behavioural and situational interviews, and system design interviews as well. Questions that are far more open and less binary and require you to draw from your own genuine experience. So for example, tell me about a time you disagree with a technical decision and how you handle it. It's substantially harder to fake than a binary search problem because there's no right or wrong answer to look up. This may be a bit legally grey, but there are tools emerging to try and detect cheating in real time, analysing typing cadence, eye movement, how long it takes to respond to different types and questions. This is generally a cat and mouse situation and both sides are getting more sophisticated. The honest summary though, none of these solutions are clean or popular. Every countermeasure has a workaround and the industry is essentially playing whack-a-mole. And I believe the real problem is we're only talking about catching cheaters. This has become so widespread because we built an entire hiring process optimized for filtering, not for evaluating. The leak code interview was always a performance, a rite, a ritual, or a dance. And apart from the data structures therein, they have very little relevance to do with the actual job itself. And when the dance has become completely detached from reality, it created a gap between how you get the job and what the job is, and people filter that gap. You could also argue that the interview process itself has gotten significantly harder over the past few years in of itself. However, that being said, that doesn't make cheating okay. If you fake your way into a role you cannot do, you're stealing a seat or a position from someone who has earned it, and you're setting yourself up to fail publicly, and that's bad for everyone, including yourself. But if the only response is better surveillance and not better interviews, things like this will keep getting worse and will get worse as time goes on. The companies that will get ahead of this are the ones that redesign the process so that gaming it requires actually being able to do the job. Until that happens, this is only going to go in one direction. And that's all she wrote for me. So now I'm going to defer to you guys. If you've been through a software engineer interview or any interview in general recently, on either side, interviewer or interviewee, I want to know your perspectives on the whole situation and what you've seen. Please drop it in the comments. And if this topic resonated with you in particular, please do share it. It helps a lot. I think this industry needs to have a conversation a lot more honestly than it has been doing. See you in the next video.